Greetings, everyone. A few weeks ago, we had an event in Chicago that went from 10 a.m. till 7:30 p.m. During this time, many subjects were spoken on, but one that is important for many of you to know is how to grow food within smaller spaces. Most people do not have large amounts of land to grow quality fruits and vegetables. And even as we buy more land and warehouse grow space, and if we were to grow food on every inch of that space, that does nothing in the global sense of it all, as all of us, or at least most of us, need to grow something, even if it is just one thing really well. So, because this is the majority of people, we took it upon ourselves to show you how to do it. What you're about to see is part one of a two-part series. Part one is this release, and part two will be released tomorrow. If any questions arise, do not be afraid to ask them below. If the question is covered in part two, we will let you know. If it isn't, then we will cover it in a future call so all can benefit. We grow all types of fruits and vegetables behind the scenes with the very same seeds that you purchased from the Meta Center, and are conducting, again, more experiments to show actually how certain frequencies can increase plant growth rate by 3 to 5 times. Literally. This is like, to give you an example, like a tree that takes 30 years to grow before it can bear fruit, instead grows in 5 to 7 years before it bears fruit. Okay? So it's actually, what you could say is amazing. And so we're also showing how to grow other types of plant life found around the realm. That's an ongoing thing that those on our Patreon and are a part of. So, because this video is on YouTube, take your time. You can pause it if you need to. You can rewind it. You can play it in slow motion or speed it up. So now on to the show. What's up? What's up? Greetings, everyone. All right, so I'm going to go through the list here all in a moment. So what I'm doing now, so some of you all may get a text message here in a moment because some people don't look at the emails at all. So I'm just going to send out a blast real quick to make sure those who want to be a part of it are here. All right, so I hope everyone is doing well within your space and time. So shout out to everybody. We here again. We were missing at the event. Supposed to have been closer to 50 people, and we had about 42 or 40. Well, not about 39 there. So we're missing about 10, 11 people. So so shout out to you if you are here, but you missed the event itself. And shout out to all of you all who actually came to the event. Now, for those who came, of course, I've been hearing things already, but some of you all may have noticed since the event, because the events are not just conversation, they're actually kind of like mini training sessions, right? So from the time the event happened to now, I would assume as you've been out and about in the world, right, you've been looking at people and kind of I want to call it examining them, but you've been looking at just their behavior and stuff like that, and picking up on just attributes that you may not have in that way before. Okay, so it's almost like a filter has been taking off, right? And so you're able to see the realm just at least closer to what it actually is. So and that's why many people come out over and over and over again, because each class is specifically like that to take off another filter. So it is for the brave of heart, and that's why some of you all have to be careful when you bring people to the events and stuff like that, because you know what to expect, right? You like, let's get it in, let's go. But especially if you're bringing someone who just may not be at that level at all, it could actually cause them distress to be seeing things so vividly like that. So just be conscientious of that, especially if some of you all come out for future events. Okay, so what today class is, as you've seen, we were going for like 7, 8 hours, right? And it was still more to go, right? So, and even when Gary came in, we sped it up a bit. You know what I'm saying? So I knew that certain things, or at least certain topics, I have no issue with talking about on a recorded line like how it is now, versus some of those topics that are only for those spaces only. So this is one of those topics, right? So which deals with the farming. So I'll be sharing my screen here in a moment, and any questions and things that you all would like to get into concerning it, we can get into all of that. So shout out to Randy, Barbara, uh, Cami, Chris, Christy, Corey, Danny, Faith. Who's iPhone? Just so I know who you are. So there, you can unmute your phone. It should allow you to. Just so I know who you are.
Hello, Tony.
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's Andrew.
Okay, what's up, Drew? All right, so let me change that just so I know. Okay, here. Okay, so what's up, Gerard? Gerard, you kind of snuck out of there really quick the other day. I didn't even see you when you left. What's up, Kev, Maurice, Amira, Ruth, Skylar, Yolanda, and Z. All right, so so I'm gonna try my best to make this as simple as possible, because hydroponics in itself, the systems itself, can be a bit complicated at times. What's up, Candace? Could be a bit complicated at times, and so I have done many of these different types of systems, and so I could tell you the pros and cons and so on and so forth. Okay, Faith had asked anywhere to find the music. Are you talking about the music I usually be playing before we actually get started? Let's see here. Okay. So I'll try to post it, but yeah. So I'll post it here in a little bit, or at least tell you the name. So all right. Okay, so let's just get into it. I'm about to share my screen. And shout out to those who did not make it, because it was again a few people, and they had bought tickets for themselves and even some of their family members, this and that, and nobody made it at all. So I hope everyone's cool where you're at, even though that may be the case. All right. What's up, Casey? See you just join us as well. How you doing, Cassandra? What's up, Rick? So other people are coming in because they get the text message. All right, so I'm just gonna get straight into it. So for those who are joining us now, we got into this at the event itself, but we kind of went past it quite quickly just because it was already like 7 hours of speaking at that point. All right, and Gary had came, and so I wanted to get to the points or those topics that we pretty much are not going to go over on the internet. Okay, so but this is one of those topics that can be, and so I wanted to give it its proper attention so you all can know what you need to know. So we're gonna just get straight into it now. So you all should see the screen here, and it says farming. So you should see that. One moment here. Let me move over. So leave any questions or comments that you may make just toward the once I get through. So at least the core information is done. I could go back to any of the slides if you want to see something like that. All right. So just bear with me real quick here. All right. Okay. Hey, what's up, Siobhan? Okay, so let's get straight into it here. Okay, so we're gonna start from the beginning, like we did in the class. So what's the problem, right? Especially right now. Food scarcity. There's a lot of places that are finding bare shelves, and that's not a good sign at all. And these things we've been talking about in our different private sessions. Some of you, this is your first private session that you ever came to, but of course, we've been having many over the last 6 years. And so some of these topics, and even dealing with armaments and all type of stuff we talked about behind the scenes. But one of the main things now that people are experiencing is one or both of these, which is food scarcity. So your favorite item, like Robutin or something like that, you're finding it out of stock more and more, and or also rising food prices. Okay, I'm sure everyone is starting to see that, where either the price of the meal, whatever, is going up in itself, or you will find that you're getting smaller quantities. Okay, that's the way they typically like to hide it. So let's say if you let's say in many of you purchase the herbs on the website. So let's say 4 ounces of this herb was $10. Now you're getting 3.5 ounces for $10. Okay, so that is actually raising the price because you're actually getting less. Okay, so now it's more so like 3 ounces for $10, right? So it's going more and more. So one of the also things was needing to grow within smaller spaces. Many people here are in condos and apartments. Actual real home ownership, even though there are people who have really nice condos and stuff like that, and they may so-called own the condo. I don't consider that personally home ownership. What is? Oh, okay. Let's see something. Yeah, I don't really consider that personally home ownership. I consider home ownership actually a home. Okay, actually a house of some sort. So, a lot of people are now growing in smaller and smaller spaces. Unfortunately, okay, so that's also part of the problem. The next thing here is needing to grow enough food to satisfy one adult male. Uh, so this is the problems that I made for myself, right? So typically when an adult male consumes more than an adult woman. So if you make enough for an adult male, then you can satisfy the women and the children as well. Okay, so each unit is a unit to itself. Okay, meaning that you're going to see the different parts that are used for the my unit. Okay, version one of it, and so with that, that satisfies one adult male. Okay. So if it's for adult woman, I mean, she even have even more food. If it's for a child, they would have double and a half the amount of food. All right. So typical calories for adult male who is moderately active is approximately 2,500 calories a day. For adult female, approximately 2,000. And for children, male or female, it's approximately 1,400 to 1,600 daily. So there are two types of growing methods, mainly soil or hydroponics. Okay, soil is obviously putting the plant or the seed in dirt in the earth. Okay, and then there's hydroponics, which of course is growing typically somewhat artificially, meaning you're probably growing on pipes or uh, posts of some kind. You're using more than likely some type of nutrients, artificial or synthetic nutrients, and so on and so forth. Pros versus cons. Soil, of course, you can grow that outside mainly. Some people do grow soil things inside, but if you can go inside, one should potentially think of hydroponics only because you will grow quicker. Okay, when you're growing inside in the lights, typically there's an expense there, which is electricity. Okay, so you want to grow as quickly as possible. The growing cycle indoors with hydroponics is approximately 3 months. So every 3 months you're harvesting, which is very similar to outside. But so yeah, so can grow outside. Soil has slower growth than hydroponics. Okay, it's of course soil can be all natural, but also it can be unnatural. But for the most part, it can be all natural and limited on what you can do since it's based on weather. So if you live in a climate zone that's colder, then you have to implement other methods of growing, like greenhouses and stuff like that. Okay. When it comes to hydroponics, you can grow inside or outside. It's fast to hyper fast growth rates.
Excuse me.
Hello? Okay. Christy, I muted you. I was hearing some things from your phone. So, hydroponics can grow inside or outside, fast to hyper fast growth rates. It uses synthetic chemicals to grow, even if they claim it's organic and stuff like that. How can these chemicals be really organic, right? So it just, even though they claim all that, and yes, you should use that version versus just the pure one of synthetic, but still, how organic can it really be? Okay. Not limited on weather, but will need grow lights and growing indoors and other equipment. Okay. Let's see here. There are a few types. Well, here's the main types of hydroponic systems. There's drip. There's DWC, which is deep water culture. There's, which I'm gonna show you examples of all of this. Okay. There's NFT, which is nutrient film technique. There's Wick. There's ebb and flow, and there's aeroponics. Okay. We're going to focus more to this whole thing here on hydroponics itself, like all the systems that I just named, just because it's very easy to grow in soil. Okay. You just literally, that's the thing about nature, right? You can literally just take a seed and put it in the soil and it will grow. It's really quite simple. Now, there's techniques like permaculture, there's techniques of not overusing or depleting the soil of nutrients by changing what you grow and stuff like that. So those are more moderate to advanced techniques that can happen with soil, but for the most part, soil is super simple. All right. So let's get into the different types of hydroponic systems. Now, when it comes to, for example, in these days and time, we have oh yeah, what's up, Maurice? I didn't see you there. I think I didn't see you there either. What's up, Antoine, as well. So when it comes to hydroponic systems, or in these days and times when you need to grow a lot of food, this is all by design, of course. None of this is by an act of God at all. This is people doing these types of nonsense that are causing the issues that we are experiencing or potentially would experience. So let's say that you have the means, right, to grow lots of food. Okay, so you have the space, you may have a warehouse or whatever it may be. So if it's between hydroponics and soil, if you only have access to a warehouse, let's say, then I would go hydroponics because you're growing a lot. You can grow a lot of food really quickly. Okay. And especially if you're trying to grow food for 10, 20, 30, 40 people. And even potentially if you lived in a good climate, it just depends. Okay. Whereas, or you may, for example, at least uh, utilize some of these growing methods to be alongside the soil things you're doing as well. So you have food that's growing really quick versus the things you may have in soil and stuff like that can take longer or may need to be in soil out in the sun directly, like trees and stuff like that, right? So the first system that we're going to look at here is a drip system. And what a drip system is, as you see here, typically there's a reservoir, okay? That's where the water pump is. And it's pumping water above the plants there, and each plant you see has a little nozzle going to it, and literally it's dripping down into the medium. The medium here is probably cocoa peat, okay, or something similar, okay. And what that is literally, you could think of it like a neutral, like think of it like rocks, okay, clay rocks, okay, and these clay pebbles or rocks or pellets, they don't really hold on to water that much. Okay. So it's dripping through and it's going to flow all the way down and drip back out. Okay. And so then it goes into the bottom of that reservoir and then eventually drips back into the tank, which goes back up again. Okay. And this is a constant drip that's happening. Okay. So this is happening all day, every day. It is a nice system. Some people like this type of system. The roots eventually are going to grow down into the medium. Okay. All of these systems should be like none of this should be see-through actually. So if you actually are growing any of these hydroponic systems, the reservoirs where the water is, and even where the neti pots are, like what you see here, okay, that's what the actual cocoa peat in the plant is in. All of that should be dark, as far as the containers itself or wherever you have those pots in, should be completely black. So no sunlight should reach in there at all. In doing so, you have really almost like chalk white roots coming from the plants. These, which shows extremely healthy plants. Okay, if the roots are getting brown, if the roots are getting black, your plant is sick, or maybe it may be sick, or may be infected, and so on and so forth. The best kind of roots you can have is that chalky, milky white. This is another type of drip system, very similar. Okay, again, just hold on one moment, everyone. Just one moment here. I'm gonna play some music just for about 2 minutes, if that. Okay, so I'm back here. All right, so so this second type of drip systems can look any type of way, period. Like when I get into details of the system that I created, which is more of a mist version of an aeroponic system, you'll see it could really be anything as long as you have the basic qualities there, the basic components there for the system to work itself. Okay. So in this drip system, the pump is down there. It's pumping into, of course, again, into the different neti pots. Okay. And from that point, the liquid that comes from the bottom, it goes back drips back into the reservoir itself. And then it goes back up again, does it again. Okay. So let's go to the next one here. All right. The next system is a deep water culture. Okay. Typically, with a deep water culture, again, you're always going to have pretty much a reservoir. Okay. So the reservoir is here, and instead of it pumping to another pump per se or anything like that, here's an air pump over here. Okay. The air line is in the water, right? Going to an air stone. Okay. Many of you probably know about this from fish tanks. Okay. They create the bubbles, right? The roots itself is typically submerged, or the tank itself is submerged in the solution. And the air stone is because it's oxygenating or aerating the water. Okay. If you don't do that, the roots will suffocate. Okay. They literally need oxygen as well. So, all right. The next one is the NFT, which is a nutrient film technique. And with this technique, again, it's very similar in a way to deep water culture, but it's a little bit different because, again, you have the reservoir, you have an air stone. Typically, in most of the reservoirs, I will always have an air stone in there just to keep the solution extra oxygenated. So with this one, pretty much ensure the roots will grow down, and pretty much it's almost like a constant flow of nutrients on the roots. Okay, so this is constantly flowing like a stream over the plant. Okay. The next one here is the Wick system. So the Wick system is super simple. Okay, so you have your reservoir, right? No air pump or anything. Okay, and you have some type of it could be even an organic hemp string, literally. Okay, so you have your neti pots and stuff like that, and you have these strings going from the pots into the water itself. Based on just how things work here, right? Nature, it will the string itself is going to start pulling up the water up through higher up into the pot itself, and that's how the plants or the roots will get fed. From that point, over time, the roots will start to grow down along the wick into the water. Okay. Now, in this type of system, as you see, is no um, air stone in there, right? So this type of system, you end up changing the water more frequently because the water itself is only oxygenated for a very short period of time. Here's the ebb and flow. Okay, so the ebb and flow type of system is that, uh, of course, here you got to get the reservoir again. Okay, water is pumped up and up into the second portion or the upper portion. It's typically filled up, right? So it will fill up to a certain point, and then the pump will turn off, and then all the water will drain back out. And at a certain point, it will fill up again and then drain back out. Okay, that's the ebb and flow. Okay, you see there's a timer there as well because you could time it for certain points in time, like the aeroponics system, like you're about to see next. So this is a very similar system that I have here made that you're going to see more pictures of, but this is the general aspect of how it works. Okay, and so I have a timer on mine, which I just get into that in a moment. So this one here is not a real aeroponic system. The true aeroponic systems, when they originally created at the universities, they were the fog type, which I'm going to show you next. That's one of the more difficult ones to create. So for the most people, I would say 99% of people, when they create an aeroponic system, it's going to be more of a mist type of aeroponics. So think of like at the grocery store, how your vegetables are and fruits are misted on with the water, okay? Like that, okay? And so what ends up happening is that like I have a separate reservoir, okay? And but in this aspect here, this pump will always be on because there's no timer. So this pump will always be on. It will, the nutrients is flowing through the pump, it's going through the nozzles and it's spraying um and it's spraying all the time. So this will be spraying like literally 24/7, just spraying. Okay, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but what I have a certain technique which has produced massive growth in massive food. Okay, so that's one technique there. Okay, the next one here is the fog type. Now the fog type, if it's done the, I don't want to say the legitimate way, but done a way that creates, like, this is say how they did it in the university, the original method, okay? That needs a compressor and everything, okay? You start to get really technical with this. But if it's done correctly, no other, hydroponics is known for its growth. It's known for its fast growth, okay? That's what hydroponics is known for. It's known for producing highly nutrient dense, for at least the most part of it can be, as far as using those chemicals, but highly nutrient dense, fast growth products. Okay, so like for example, those who are connoisseurs of the devil's lettuce, right? They know that hydroponics, the buds tend to be denser. Okay, they grow bigger and so on and so forth than the soil counterpart. Okay, well, aeroponics is like hydroponics on steroids, even the misting one. Okay. But this version here, which is the original version, oh, it trumps all the other methods. Okay. But there's a lot of problems with, so the more components you have, the higher chance of these components to go wrong. So I'm going to tell you, I mentioned a little bit in the class, but I'm going to give a little bit more detail what I mean by that. So I'm going to show you parts and stuff as well. Okay. So, and again, if there's any questions come up once I get through here in a moment, then you will be, you could ask any question you like. And of course, as I'm going along here, because I don't want you to forget any questions, you can type out your questions in the chat room and I will get to those as well. Okay. So next one here. So here's a picture of my system here. Okay. And I'm getting to the components used. So what you see here, um, there's Mylar on the back wall there. Okay, and this is from January 8th of this year. So there's Mylar on the back wall. These doors, I kind of create these from pegboards like that. Okay, remember I'm creating everything. This is from the hardware store, right? So I'm just getting random things so that if I that so a person can just go and do it themselves. So you see Mylar on the pegboards here as well. So when I close these up, it shines. It's a really reflective surfaces on all four surfaces. This here is a fence post. Again, I'm going to show you all these parts in a moment. Fence posts. There's cocoa peat in there, but there's also rock wool because I had to start these plants. I started them like in this starter, kind of like hooded device that I have, whatever. And I started those in rock wool, right? And so that's what you kind of see there, that little thing in the middle there. But you see like the cocoa peat around it, those that clay balls around it. Some of them you don't see at all. It's all clay balls because it was allowed to get big enough in the other device. And so I could just transplant the plant only without the rock wool being attached to it. Okay. And I prefer actually that way. So this is fence posts. I had to drill those holes in it, and these are 3-inch pots at the top here. At the bottom, those are 3-inch pots there too, and those are 2-inch ones on the other one there, right? You see, there's lots of holes there, right? Because this is me messing around. I had planned out the system, but even sometimes when you plan things out, sometimes it doesn't go exactly how you want it. So, like this method here, the way this system is, I will use this for or something similar. It wouldn't be exactly this, but something similar for larger operations. Okay, much larger operations. So I drilled a bunch of holes all over the place, and everything else, and you see everywhere you see a pot at, it was a plant growing there. Okay, so let's go on. So this is the 20th. Also at the top, what you're going to see, I'm going to show you how the shelving look and stuff like that. But at the top, I grew sprouts. Okay, so weekly eating sprouts, and as you see here, the plants are growing. Right, the 3 in the front here are lettuce. The 2 in the back there were lima beans. Okay, and there's various plants down here, like many of the plants or the seeds you see on the website, like Barrage, uh, and many other ones. I was growing many of these things here. Uh, So here, this is even a few more days. So the people like, look at it here, right? This is the 20th, right? You see the plants like that, right? And even from the 20th to the 26th, look at the difference in the growth. Okay, look at the lettuce. Look how small the lettuce are. Okay, so you can see this with your own eyes. Okay, and look, just a few days later, look how big they are. You see, and look at the lima bean in the back. Let's look at the lima bean. 20th, you see in the back there, it's growing. It's getting big. 26. Look how many more leaves it is. Okay. Also, I had a fan. This is one. This is the top here. So this is the top shelving. This is the bottom shelving, and I have a fan there to kind of mimic the wind. Okay, in doing so, you actually make these are just little nuanced techniques. In doing that, what you're doing is making the stem stronger. You're making the branches stronger. Okay, because they have to resist that flow of air so they don't topple over or break and so on and so forth. And then, as you see here, from the 26th to February 1st, again, just a few days. Look at all that growth. The lima bean plants were getting so big. This now I have to get a net. Okay, they call this trellis netting. I had to get that to kind of wrap it around and start to push the plants through it so it could be held up. Okay, you see massive growth within a short period of time. Right now, I'm eating on amaranth. Right, so I have lots of plants even right now growing all over the place. And one of the plants I'm eating off of, like literally, I go in there and I just may take a few amaranth leaves off and just eat it, right? Or make me a little salad with it and stuff like that. I tell you, it's quite interesting, right? And so so anything else I want to share with this right now? Again, we could come back to this and questions like that, but I'm gonna move past this for now. What you see, these little things you see here, like right there and right there, that's a humidity and temperature meter. So I can see temperatures and the humidity in the little environment there. What you see here and here, those are grow lights, and the same things at the top as well. Grow lights up there as well, and on the sprout layer up there, there's grow lights too. I'm creating a version 2 of this system. And the reason why I don't like this system, because when I created this, it works, right? How it works here is there's a reservoir over to the side. You kind of see a little bit of a glimpse of it right there, that yellow, right there, down there. That's a reservoir, which you will see that in a moment in the parts list. But so what happens is that every 15 minutes, the air pump turns on for 1 minute. Okay. And so what happens is that it turns on, it flows through a bunch of different tubes, and it splits off. So the bottom layer start getting misted. So think of like in the vegetable and fruit aisle at the grocery store. The same mist is very similar to what it was in the system. Okay, and it started misting there, and also it misted at the top for 1 minute straight, and then it turned off. So that means the water then it drains out on the hand side here. You can't see, but there's holes at the bottom of each of these posts, and it's a tube that goes down back into the reservoir. So then the water drains back into the reservoir. The reason why you see, like in this picture here, you see like kind of like you see down there right there, those are actually plates I put there to kind of angle it so it can kind of force the water down to the right, so it goes toward the hole, which goes down to the reservoir. Now, all these things I had to drill and everything. Okay. And so even all that, it took some time. It was, since I know what I'm doing, I did it, but it could be kind of tedious for someone who it could be really tedious actually. So now when it comes to the different breakoffs and stuff like that on the left hand side, 'cause that's where the tubes are fed in at and stuff like that. There's a lot of different, just like little like L shaped connectors and uh three-way shaped connectors and everything else. The more connectors you have and all these different things you have, um, the the more chance for something to go wrong or something to get clogged or something to leak. So with this system here, I deal with leaks all the time, right? Not major leaks like water's just pouring out, but just little driplets here and there. And so, and then I get the driplets stopped, and then I have to clean the system, like the reservoir, something like that, which means I end up moving some of this stuff out the way up to the side. And because then it moves it out of place again, and then now it drips again. So on a larger scale, this system here, again, I would do it differently on a larger scale. But version 2 of the system that I'm creating is more so like, let me show you here. It has elements of aeroponics, okay? So very kind of similar to this, but it also is a like ebb and flow. So kind of like this, okay? So this is kind of a system that I'm creating now for version 2, just because everything that is needed for version 1, and even version 1, I'm not going to do again. I'm going to do that differently as well, just on a bigger scale though, okay? It's just certain things I just do different because I don't want to deal with leaks. I don't want to deal with any of that at all. Let me tell you the problem with aeroponics, okay, versus some of these other systems. Regardless if it's the fog one, which is the ideal one you actually want, or the mist one, which is more like what most people would end up doing, is that since the roots are only getting fed and only becoming moist when the timer is on to keep them moist. Now, in a system like this with no timer and it's going 24/7, you don't have to worry about it, okay, unless the electricity goes out or something, okay? If that happens, roots being suspended in air need the moist environment. If they do not have that moist environment, literally you could say a countdown is starting and the roots are now starting to dry out. When roots become completely dried out, they become nutrient locked. Okay. Nutrient locked. Okay. Meaning that they cannot take up nutrients anymore. Okay. Uh, and so if it can't take up nutrients, guess what's going to happen? The plant is going to die. So that's what happened for my system here. Okay. And I'll tell you how it happened. I was cleaning the system, cleaning the reservoir, stuff like that, and kind of doing this little maintenance to it. Remember, it leaks a little here and there, stuff like that, right? So doing maintenance to it and stuff like that. And I think a phone call had happened, stuff like that. And I was through with it. Only thing I had to do was plug it back up. That's it. Okay. I ended up walking away from it and just totally just forgetting about it. Okay. It ended up going, remember, a system like this, I'm already kind of somewhat stressing it because it's 15 minutes of no water at all for the roots that are suspended, and then 1 minute of water. That seemed to be an excellent sweet spot to get the type of growth you see here. Okay. Type of growth you see there, that's the sweet spot. And the roots were bright white. They were chalk, milky white color. Okay, beautiful roots. Okay, exactly what you want. And so that was the perfect sweet spot. Okay, but anything over that 15-minute time, now you're starting to stress the roots to the point where they may start to die off and stuff like that. Okay, so I ended up walking away, not realizing at all to pretty much like 16, 17 hours later. Okay. And at that point, all the plants were like leaning over. I was like, no, because I had literally a whole farm here. You know what I'm saying? All of this was grown, okay, and growing. Okay. So I had literally a large harvest that I was going to be harvesting toward the end of February, early March. Okay. And so see, ideally, if it didn't happen the way it happened, I was going to bring a bunch of vegetables and stuff like that to the event for many of you all to sample, okay, and say, hey, this was grown in the hydroponic system, right? So, but literally, it stressed the heck out of a lot of the plants. And so some of them I had to end up taking out immediately because they completely died. Others were wilted, tried to come back, but then died. And then some tried to come back over a period of a few weeks, but then died. Okay. So I end up over time just getting over time, even though the one of them was the barrage flower, which is sold on the website, that seed or that flower can be utilized in tea and stuff like that. Okay. It's a very beautiful blue colored flower. And so it ended up lasting the longest, but I ended up throwing that away literally a few days ago. Okay. Reason being is that it started to get really huge. Everything was perfect. Many of the flower buds started to actually start to produce the blue flower, and then all of a sudden just start to lean over and die. I was like, "What's going on?" And then when I looked at the roots, remember this is the last original plant from the genocide. Let's just say, right? And so when I lifted up the neti pot, the root was all like dark brown, stuff like that. So it was nutrient locked and probably fungus was in there, stuff like that, which kills your plants. Okay. So what ends up happening also in a system like this is that the roots will end up growing down at first, and then they're going to grow toward where the water pretty much flows. And so like right now, like my amaranth plant and many other plants, they've grown all within the fencing itself, and then they grew down the tube. So the tube that goes down to the reservoir to bring the water back, the roots have grown down the tube. And when I clean out the reservoir or open the lid to it, you see roots from the tube from these high up, you know, uh, the ones up here, right? So you're talking about that's about a 4 foot, about 4.5 foot, you know, difference to get down there. So the roots grow crazy. Okay, so only thing with a system like this, though, like the ebb and flow again, which is I'm doing a mixture of ebb and flow and aeroponics of version 2, which I'm going to take pictures of and stuff like that as well for you all to see, stuff like that. Is that for this particular system here, the roots are going to grow into the solution, and then they're going to start to come toward the pump, and they're going to clog up your pump. So to avoid that, what I'm doing is that instead of just having the neti pots here, like how this is, think of it like two reservoirs. Okay, so the main reservoir is like this, and then it's gonna be another reservoir, let's say on top, and that's where the pots are in. So they're gonna be sprayed, and everything else at the top, and then I'm gonna have, of course, a flow, two flows going down. Well, probably multiple, so water can go down. But each of those areas is going to have each hole is going to have like a mesh filter there, so the roots won't grow past the mesh. So that will keep the pump and the water down here clean, okay, without any like plant matter flowing around it, and without the roots growing down into it to get toward the pump, because it will clog up your pump. This is a matter of time, literally. Okay, so let's get into some hydroponic parts. Now, I went on Amazon just due to easily you could get this stuff from Amazon, but if you go to your local hydroponic store, this is where you'll get it from. One caller here, Barbara, had mentioned the stigma of the hydroponic stores, and yeah, it may have a stigma because I'm gonna mute you for now, Barbara. But in a moment, you can come on in. But so hydroponic stores do have kind of a stigma, but this is how, like, literally the people who are growing tomatoes and growing, like look at me, I was growing just literally, I wasn't growing the devil's lettuce, I'm growing literally vegetables and stuff, right? I have to go to a hydroponic store too. Okay, so it does have somewhat of a stigma because uh, people do grow marijuana, but still at the same time, that's where you go to get your nutrients. Okay, otherwise you go to like Amazon for now, and like Fox Farm is an excellent nutrient company. Okay, they're very well known, been around for a long time. There are many others as well, but Fox Farm, you probably could not go wrong with that. Okay, one of these is for like this one here is for you can put it pretty much at any time. This one here is for vegetables or for your plants to a certain point, and this one here is during its flowering stage. Okay, so when it's time to flower, for those plants that do flower, okay, then you would change to this one here, so they could flower and so on and so forth. Okay, next one here This is similar shelving I used. Okay, the shelving I used was black, but I couldn't find it on Menard's website. Okay, and it wasn't $71. It was like, was it? No, it was around that price. It was around $70, $80. And so one I have is black, and all of these are it's rails. Okay, so mine's are it's not like a complete solid surface. Mine's are rails. Okay, and so it's only about 16 inches in depth by 36 inches long. Okay, so that's so literally very similar to the dimensions you see here: 36 inches wide, 60 inches high, by a 16-inch depth. Okay, and mine also is has five portions. Okay, instead of four. Here is the railing. Okay, so this railing, this is more than I paid for the railing. So prices are kind of going up now, right? And so the railing, when I paid for it, each railing was around $20. Okay, for a 4-foot railing. Well, not 4 foot, that's 4 inches. Okay, so that's the round. So it doesn't really show it here, but this cap goes on the end here. And so when you measure from one side to the other, it's 4 inches. Okay. And that was the perfect amount of space to use a hole saw to drill the hole I needed on top. Okay. It was like perfect space without being too big, taking up too much space, and so on and so forth. Okay. Here, like for example, are the net pots. Here are the 3-inch ones. I see that 3 inches is like a sweet spot. Okay. I did have the 2 inches, of course. You see those little spots. So like the little spots you see down there, those are 2-inch ones. The big ones are 3 inch. I even had some 4-inch. The 4-inch was pretty much too big for my railing. So it was a waste of time getting those. And the way the plants grow and so on and so forth, I will only use bigger than 3 inches if it's a plant that I'm planning on keeping around for a long time. And so since most of these plants will be harvested after 3 to 4 months, that wasn't necessary. Okay. The next thing is a water pump. Okay. And so you need a submersible. Let me see here. So you need a submersible water pump. And what ends up happening is that so you would this literally sits in the water, right? And the cord will go out, of course, not in the water, but out the unit or out the reservoir and plugged up. You will have your tubing hooked to this here, okay? And you got to look and make sure what tubing it would take. Some of them take different size tubings, okay? So mine takes 1/2 inch, for example, 1/2 inch tubing, and you would end up uh, putting a tube here and then taking it wherever you need to take it, okay? I actually had a picture of the tubing as well. Let me add that in here. I did have a picture. Give me one moment here. Going to make sure that you do see how the tubing looks as well. So let me add that to it real quick. So bear with me here one moment. Okay, so here I go here. Okay, so I'm about to share my screen here. All right, so you should see it, but it's saving onto my other drive, so we had to give it a second or so for it to do that. Yeah, we had to give it a second for it to do that. So until that comes up, here's like the reservoir I used here. Okay, and so this was the reservoir. Now, what end up happening in the version 2 of the system, which is much more manageable for more people, for most people to do. Okay, this will still be the reservoir, but the top won't be on it. Then another one of these is going to go on top of that, and the top will be on that one, which will have the holes for the different net pots, right? And plants to go in. I will only do about 4 to 6 plants on this, so the plants have enough space to get as big as possible. And what end up happening is that inside of here, you will end up seeing like it's gonna be a hole, of course, holes at the bottom. Okay, so it'd be holes at the bottom that will allow it to for the water to drain into the bottom reservoir, which again will be exactly the same thing. Look like this, and go into the bottom reservoir. The pump will take it to the top here, and I will have it attached going around up in here. Okay, so in some form of fashion, I haven't really decided and finalized exactly how I want the pump in there. But when it's pumping, it's going to be spraying all over the place inside of there. Okay, and that's what you want. It's not going to be it's not going to be like a fog type system, anything like that. At least at first. Okay, so here's the tubing, for example. Let me change that. Okay, so there's the tubing, for example, 1/2 inch tubing. Yeah. And so lights. Now you can grow. Now, what I was growing, I was trying to keep it as cheap as possible, right? Purposely. The lights I were growing were literally like it wasn't this brand, but it was literally cheap 100-watt LED grow lights. Okay, this one here uh, is 75 watt. I wouldn't get. I would minimum I would give is 100 watt, but I purposely the reason why I wanted to put this here is for the colors. Okay, if you notice in my pictures up there, the top, you notice top has more of a sunlight color. The bottom has that purple color, okay? Because the bottom is more of a light that looks like this. The top one is more of a light that looks like this. I got the two because I wanted to compare which one grows faster. What I noticed is that all the plants that were at the top tend to grow much faster and with much more vigor than the ones on the bottom with the purple lights. Okay, the ones purple light did grow, and it was very close, but that's just that. So I would end up having lights all over the place, like version 2, because I'm still using the same steel, um, steel railing and everything. Okay, I'm just now. It's not going to be like two different ones here. The reservoir fits. You can say horizontally. You can say within this, I can fit two of them, right? And so they'll be there, and that will do about the same amount of plants that I would do overall in the two layers there, two tiers. And the lights that gonna be lights on top, of course, maybe pretty much the same amount of lights on top, but the other two lights or other three lights, I'm gonna put around the sides and stuff like that. So now the bottom of the plants are also receiving at least that 100 watts. Okay. Ideally, you want as much light as possible. Okay. As far as in wattage. Okay. If you don't want 100-watt lights, you want like 400 watts or 600 watts or 1,000 watts or like 2,000 watts. Especially those who are marijuana connoisseurs, it's very easy to see how important wattage is because if you use very low wattage, the plant will grow, but you will notice, for example, that it doesn't create as many bud sites. The bud sites it does create are not dense, okay, and large. They tend to be smaller and like they're like more stringy, okay. So the same thing, if think about what's happening with that is also happening with other plants as well. So if your plant produces fruit or some type of bean on it, like I grew lima beans as well, then you will notice that the beans are just not as big as they could be, and that's because you're not using enough wattage. But of course, the higher wattage you use, the more your bill is going to be. This is why when you're growing plants and stuff like that, yes, you're growing to eat, right? You ideally want to grow enough to supplement. You may not cut out your buying from the store, but you just kind of want to supplement to the point where maybe a quarter of your bill could be, subsidized, maybe even half of the amount of money you spend in a year could be subsidized by what you're growing. Okay, maybe even 3/4. Okay, you will. One should supplement also maybe with fish or fish oils and stuff like that as well. Depending upon what you're actually growing. Okay, this is why you see a lot of like vegans and stuff like that with sunken eyes, with darkness around the eyes, stuff like that, because they're nutrient deficient. Okay, you're gonna be very careful of that. So here are the foggers. Okay, so going back to the fogging system here, right here. Now again, remember I mentioned to you that the ideal way that you create this type of system is with a compressor. Okay, and it gets very technical and it can be complicated. Okay, and in the aeroponic system, there's so many nozzles and stuff like that at times. It can end up you would just have like clogged up stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? In which, of course, if you have a clog, hopefully it's not a major clog, because that'll make sure your plants then won't get the nutrients they need, which means they will die. Okay, so but what people have done is that they use foggers, like little cheap foggers like these, right? You don't want anything with lights, okay? So it'd be a fogger, and you don't want aluminum, okay? You don't want aluminum either. Aluminum is poisonous, okay? So you want to find a fogger, for example, that it will sit in the water, of course, and it will just create the fog. So that's what you see. Where is it at? Here. So that's what you see here, right? So look like he has a bigger fogger there, right? This looks like this is small, so this has to be a fogger here as well. And look at another fogger here, right? So they're using actually foggers of some sort. Okay, so you want to be in that wheel, even though it's not based on a compressor and stuff like that. The roots will grow crazy, because it's like they're a fog. It's like they're literally bathed in a fog, and that fog will be all the time. Okay, so or at the very least you'll have it on a timer, where if fogs up really dense, you'll kind of keep track of it and see when it's as it's densest, and then you'll turn it off and see how long that dense fog stays in there. Okay, so let's say, for example, if the dense fog stays in there for 10 minutes, if you don't plug it back up at all, turn it on, then you'll want, for example, your timer to turn on at 9 minutes. Okay, so that's just that. Let's see, here's anything else. Okay, so that's it for that. But what I would say is this, right? So Barbara had asked a question about the things. She's a teacher, and she had mentioned just the complexity and stuff like that of the hydroponics and the students, because they're sixth graders and stuff like that. And so I kind of meditated on it as I was just doing things from the time we talked, Barbara, to now. And what I would say is this, that if you want to, okay, so the whole thing with young people especially is to inspire, right? We want to inspire them to be able to, and you don't want to of course, make them feel so challenged that they give up, or they feel like it's impossible or something like that, right? So what I would do if I was in your case, right, is maybe have a smaller hydroponic system, so you can teach them that, but just grow things, if possible, the regular way. Okay, and so even in that, you could compare systems, right? You have a small hydroponic system that's growing. You could buy on Amazon. You can even buy small, kind of like self-sustained hydroponic systems as well. Even if you want to build your own, whatever, but you could buy like ones for like $50, stuff like that on Amazon. I wouldn't grow really fluent, but it will, especially growing a smaller plant or one plant in it, stuff like that. It can be, it can show the process. So with that, so in that, it will allow you to compare between soil and hydroponics, and it won't make them feel intimidated, okay? Because this could make even an adult feel intimidated, okay, as they're trying to create this system and get it going and stuff like that, okay? And so especially since there's chemicals involved and stuff like that as well, for sixth graders, it just might be a bit too much. But soil, think about it, if you inspire them into gardening, but soil, they could just go anywhere to buy seeds and they just plant them in their backyard. All right. Now, again, I'm going to mention this to you all as well. If you're planting seeds and stuff in your backyards and everything else, if you have concrete around your backyard, you cannot grow in that soil. Okay, because the concrete is poisonous. Okay, it has high levels of deadly chemicals in it. One of them is arsenic, for example. Okay, so your plants will soak that up. So you do not want to grow if you grow directly into your soil if you have concrete sidewalks and stuff like that, driveways, stuff like that. So you want to do more above ground gardens. And not only that, more so container above ground gardens. So you don't want the roots, even though it's above ground, the roots could still grow into the ground. You don't want that. You want a closed-in kind of container above ground garden. Or of course, you can do greenhouses or something like that. So now a system like this, any of these, if done a certain way, like the system here, this whole system here is for one adult male. Okay, just a FYI, just so you know, for one adult male. The same system that I'm creating, which would be that kind of hybrid aeroponic ebb and flow system, is again for one adult male. All right, so because we require a lot of food, right? As far as humans, people, we require a lot of food. So, and especially you may even want to tier your or spread out your growth just so you can always have food. So, for example, if you grow everything right now and you're going to harvest in approximately 3 months, right? You'll be harvesting all your food. Then guess what? You'll have no food for 3 months, another 3 months, right? So you have to kind of star step it, as they say, right? You have to you're willing to like maybe grow. Let's say like for example, you're growing and you may grow one, and then at about a month you have the other ones going in. They already are sprouted. They're going in to grow, and you may have another one that at that when that gets a month. So that means that every month you're actually harvesting. Okay, beans should be a staple in there. Of course, a lot of the green amaranth, any of the greens like collard, kale, uh, maybe even some turnips. This things. You want you really want nutrient dense foods growing. So now you can even grow a watermelon with 100 watts. It's gonna be a small watermelon, but you can do it, and people have done it. So I'm gonna look at some of the questions and stuff here. What's up, Antoine? What's up, Ed? I do see you there. What's up, Joe? All right. Okay, so I'm gonna read some of the questions in there. Then once I get through with the questions, then I'll open the lines up for you all to say what you want to say. Okay. Scholar said, with this Zoom recording be shared to any platforms? Maybe the Patreon. I'll probably put this portion on the Patreon. How would you grow? Faith asks, how would you grow root vegetables? Root vegetables would be very difficult in a system like this. It's not impossible, but some research will have to be done on the type of root vegetable you want to grow and the type of medium is best for it. For now, I would say root vegetables are better for soil-based growing, at least at this point. Right now, as we're speaking. Okay. Okay. Barbara said, so I take it that your setup is inside. Do you particularly let outside air into that space? If so, how did it affect the system? Yes, it's inside and it's not closed off either. Okay, so depending upon what you're growing, you have to be careful because outside air has bacteria, has fungi in it, and stuff like that. Specifically fungi. Okay, even like insects, like mites and stuff like that. You would be surprised uh, how easy it is to infect an entire crop just because you open the door and the door goes to outside. Literally, that's it. So the outside air flows in, and all of a sudden you got spider mites all in your garden. So that's why in growing operations for marijuana stuff like that, they don't let any outside air at all in. They have all types of HVAC systems, all types of filters flowing the air and everything else, because they don't want to risk any air coming from the outside. So they literally go through double or triple or quadruple doors before you get into the actual grow room itself. Okay. So I wouldn't really worry about it unless you need to worry about it. Okay. So some plants are more susceptible to certain types of infestations versus other plants. Okay, so you got to kind of know what's in your area. You got to look up. You got to do your research. You know what I'm saying? See. So I grew a whole multitude of plants. The lima beans, not both of them, only one of them. Even though the lima bean plants got huge and they were both touching each other, one of the lima bean plants has some type of infestation. Okay, where it was something on it. I have no idea. So what it was. I even looked with my magnifying glass like that, but I could not see what it was. But many of the leaves started to get holes in it, so something was eating it up, and it wasn't due to like nutrient or fertilize, over fertilize, anything like that. Okay, because everything else was fine. The other lima bean plant was perfectly fine. So something had got on it somehow, some way, and so on and so forth. So that's why you want to also, before you touch your crops, you want to also wash your hands and so on and so forth. Okay. Christy said, how often do you have to replant? I did touch that as well. You should stagger it. And you should grow, I would say stagger month by month. So you're harvesting every month of the year. Okay. So like you'll start one, let's say one reservoir now, or a certain amount of plants now. Then as they get about a month old, you start another amount of plants. When that one get a month old, you start another amount of plants. So that means that literally every month you are just about going to be harvesting. Okay. Drew asks, what did I do to try to revive the plants? I just kept feeding them regularly. That's it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do anything special at all to it. Because once they're root locked, it's not a lot you can do. So I was just hoping that it getting its typical nutrients, that it would just awaken itself. Some of them try to. Now, even though some of them really try to, like you've seen like all these brown and black nasty roots because they were dead and they were now becoming infected and stuff and everything else. But you've seen from the pots coming you see new hairs coming out the pots and stuff like that. And so they were trying to survive, but some of those plants were really big too. So think about it. If it's a really, really big plant and now the roots are down to when it's only a sprout, you get what I'm saying? So the root system was humongous in one of them, right? And it died off, right? So now it's trying to hurry up and grow new roots, but the roots that it's growing cannot support how big of a plant it is, so it's going to die anyway. Okay. Barbara asks or mentioned, I teaching gardening to a small group. I just started teaching hydroponics. We covered soil gardening first. My intention is to have the students teach their families how to grow at least some their own food. The nutrient solutions are typically sold in grow shops in the urban areas. These facilities are stigmatized, and the chemicals may also be out of reach for some families. Do you know of any alternatives that are sustainable? Hydroponics would not be for them then. Okay, because you have to have access to the nutrients. If it's difficult or out of reach due to finances or whatever it may be, they should not do hydroponics at all. Is it best to have dark containers? Cassandra asked us, yes, dark containers is a must. Okay. Z provided some links to some raised garden beds. Amira said, I was wondering how the plants would get their nutrients, but the fox farm. Okay, yep. Okay. Okay, so is there anything verbally you all want to ask at this time? I went through all the questions. Okay, so Randy says, should you keep away from windows? Well, your grow space should actually be darker. So yes, you should keep, only lights should be really in your grow space is the lights from that you have, right? So unless you are trying to grow hydroponically based on natural light, because you could do that too. All right, so it just depends on you. But in hydroponics, you pretty much want everything most of the time controlled. So you want to keep that area as dark as possible until your timer turns on the lights and so forth. I didn't mention this, that my lights are also on timers. Okay. So not only is the water pump on a timer, my lights are as well. So my lights are, they turn on, I have it on 18/6. So it's 18 hours on, 6 hours off. Okay. All right, so if anybody has any verbal questions, you can hit 1, or you can just unmute your phone, or I believe hit 1 on your phone, or you can hit or in a Zoom program, you can hit the.
Yeah, I got a question. Quick question.
Okay, go ahead, Drew.
What type of lights are those? Are those incandescent or fluorescent or?
These are LED. LED. So these are LED lights. LED lights are the most cost effective. They last a long time. Even 400 watt, 1000 watt, 2000 watt is still, you can have them LED lights. Okay, I would suggest that because they don't get as hot, and they tend to be more efficient when it comes to electricity. Okay, if you especially if you're growing with over 100 watts, when you get near your lights, you should have sunglasses on. Okay, because you could damage your eyes from the bright light. Randy said he's going to turn his garage into a grow shop. There it is. Now, let me also mention this to you all. Now, for those who might not just want to grow vegetables and stuff like that, but grow other types of plants, and let's say you want to make a profit, like a really, not just grow lettuce and sell lettuce, because that's very low profit. So you want to grow, think of your space as literally every foot of your space, you want to maximize the output. One of the most monetarily dense plants is the marijuana plant. Just think about it. One plant could grow like 3-4 pounds of marijuana, depending upon the species of marijuana you're growing. That it could be 2-3 grand a pound. So what will come close to that? You get what I'm saying? Not saying anybody here should grow marijuana, but what I'm saying is that if it's about money, you say, oh, I'm growing to have as much money as possible where I could barter or whatever it may be. Well, you want to find root vegetables or fruits or just vegetables in general that you can grow, even fungi, mushrooms and stuff. You're going to ideally find specimens that are probably rare, maybe some difficulty in growing it, but find specimens that so you are maximizing the cost that you're going to put into it, right? So for example, like ginseng, right? Ginseng, that's a root vegetable, but ginseng itself, it grows out in the forest like that, but that could be very lucrative. Another one, for example, is it's a mushroom. What is it called? So okay, it's a very expensive mushroom. I can't really think of it right now, but it's used in fine dining and stuff like that. Many people have tried to grow that mushroom indoors. They have a high difficulty in doing it, extremely high. But if you were able to grow that mushroom indoors, no, not oyster mushrooms. No, it's if you say the name, I would know the name. Okay, but it's not oyster. But if you were to grow this mushroom, particularly indoors, for example, it smells like it has actually a very unique smell to it as well. But this mushroom, if you grow indoors, like a one little mushroom. No, not portobello. Those are all easy to grow.
Talking about truffles?
What's it called?
Are you talking about truffles?
Truffles. Yep, there it is. Yeah. Truffles. Yep. Appreciate it. Okay, so truffles. Even small truffles go for hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but they're very difficult to grow. Okay, but if you're able to figure it out, oh, if you had like a whole garage full of truffles, literally that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, and so, but mushrooms are grown entirely different than this. Okay, that's something that you have to research and stuff like that. I'm going to dip and dab in growing some mushrooms myself, even like oysters and stuff like that at first, right? But it's a whole science to growing mushrooms in and itself. It's totally different than hydroponics. Okay. Any other questions or concerns, anyone? And for those people who missed this session, it is going to be repeated. I'm just thinking about when and where. So when this year, it's going to be this year, and where I'm going to do it at. Right now, I'm thinking Atlanta, and I'm thinking Atlanta late September, early October. That's what I'm thinking. Okay, for now, I haven't finalized it at all. I'm going to be finalizing it maybe in the next week or two, and then it's going to go up for purchase at that time. So yeah. So any other questions or comments, anyone? Any other questions or comments? Also growing things like it's so many plants out there, you all, even exotic plants that if it's grown correctly, and let's say you grew it and gave a sample out to, let's say you go to a fine dining restaurant and you meet with the chef there and gave them a sample of your growth, and especially if it's something like really high end type something, right? And had them sample it, like wasabi, for example, wasabi. Okay, wasabi would probably be more outdoors growing because it's more so a root. But real wasabi, oh yes. You know what I'm saying? A fine dining restaurant chef will pay you directly for your wasabi. Okay, so just be very much aware of that. Real wasabi, which most people have not had, has many health benefits. Okay. So Any other comments or questions, anyone? Any comments or questions? If not, we will call it an evening. Okay. You're very welcome. You all in the chat there. Okay. Okay. It looks like that's it. It looks like that's it. So I hope it
Oh,
wasn't.
I'm sorry, Tony, another question.
Okay, go ahead.
The nutrients besides foxworm, could you use certain herbs
Okay, can it be used on what?
for the water nutrients?
Yeah, fox.
Like,
That's
can
what
you use?
What about
Can
it?
you use besides the foxworm? Can you use certain herbs like chlorella?
No. For your hydroponic system, you want to use you don't want to try to reinvent the wheel. Okay, you want to use the herb or the nutrients that are known for growing your particular product. Okay, like putting chlorella and stuff like that in the water and everything else. No, you don't want to do that. Now, let me just say this. Let me say it like this. You can experiment, okay, and see if it does make your plant grow faster and everything else. It might do that. Okay, but especially if I'm really dependent on my growth, okay, I don't want to end up killing my plant, or my plants because I want to experiment putting spirulina or something in the water.
Does that also apply to monatomic gold?
Same thing for monatomic gold, colloidal gold, stuff like that. If you want to experiment and potentially destroy your harvest, hey, do it for science, right? For science. And you let me know how it went. You let me know if you destroyed everything. You know what I'm saying? Or not, or did it make it grow extra fast, whatever it may be, But for all the different growing I've been doing at this point, I don't want to waste anything at this point. So Randy said he tried it. He tried putting, I guess, some type of herb or whatever into the water, and he said it caused mold. Most certainly, I could see that. And you don't want that. That will kill you. That will kill your harvest. Okay.
I have a question. I was watching, this is Barbara. I was watching a video, and they were talking about the difference with the growing medium, rock wool versus other things. And the comment was made about the rock wool getting super saturated and then becoming kind of a mess. Have you had any experience with that?
Yes, it does. It does do that. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It can be it could be okay, but at a certain point, it could end up becoming overly saturated, right?
Yeah.
Which in turn could potentially make it moldy.
Right.
Okay.
And then algae.
Right. And then algae. Algae could potentially happen anyway. That's just water.
Right.
Like,
Right.
But the mold is the bigger danger. Okay.
Right.
Because if it gets moldy, which it could get moldy, again, it's oversaturated with water. But what end up happening is that since it's right next to your roots of your plant, it's right there. You know what I'm saying? And
right. Exactly.
Your plant could potentially get infected, and now you may have an infection, and you may have to cut down that plant. Okay. So, but rock wool is the go-to. Pretty much everybody uses rock wool. But the whole thing, you could avoid using rock wool if you allow your sprout to get big enough. If you allow your sprout to get big enough, where you can put it directly into a net pot with clay pellets around. Okay. And then and I've done that quite a few times, but it can be sometime. You just want to make sure it's long. The root system at that point is long enough, because if you don't, then because I have had many sprouts die because it just was not a long enough root system.
Yeah, I've seen some, I'm going to call them hybrid systems, in that they start the plants in, I think it's peat moss, get them going, and then when, like you're saying, when they're tall enough, they do put them in that that other growing medium, the cocoa peat, I think is where they started, and then they keep the little rock pellets instead of the rock wool, and that seems to work, especially with bigger plants, like plants that tend to get bigger. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, anyone else here? Anyone else?
I have a question.
Okay.
Other than this being more, I guess, efficient for space and all year round, what do you suggest? Hydroponics or regular planting from the ground?
Okay. And what was the concern? Say that again for me.
Is this supposed to be healthier than like regular gardening?
Oh, it just depends. It just depends. A lot of your food that says organic was grown hydroponically.
Oh,
Yeah, especially if you eat lettuce, your greens, uh, a lot of the vegetables at the grocery store is grown in hydroponic virtual what do you call it, vertical gardens. Okay, if you look up vertical gardens, you can see how they look in these big old warehouses and stuff like that. Okay, a lot of our food is grown that way. Okay, and so now are they using the best nutrients though? I doubt it, but it still is grown hydroponically and stuff like that. So the root vegetables not so much so, that's still grown in the soil. And but a lot of, like, especially like lettuce. Okay, a lot of people, especially if you go to like the health food store and you see like maybe a specialty kind of ball lettuce in there, stuff like that. A lot of that, it was grown hydroponically.
okay. Because I garden and I just plant outside in the backyard. So I do want to try this stuff
Yeah.
all year round.
Soil, I would say this: if you have the space for it, and you grow out in the sun, and your soil is good quality soil that you have, it's not like contaminated or anything like that, then I will grow at least my core fruits and vegetables outside. Okay, and I will leave those inside, maybe to more maybe, or a more controlled environment. Because controlled environment can still be outside. It's more controlled and fenced off and everything else. I will leave that to more of the specialty things I may want to grow for whatever reason.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's your take on? I know you didn't cover it here, but what's your take on the aquaponics?
Oh yeah. That's one thing I didn't mention. It was something that was something I was thinking of. But so, anyways, aquaponics, again, it becomes complicated. It's complicated in the cost benefit. I don't really see it. Okay, if I'm going to spend that type of cost to get that system working perfectly, that's why a lot of people don't do it. Okay, because it's not the cost necessarily, it's the complication of it and getting the nutrients right and everything else. Once it's going. But again, to keep the system going and everything, ideally, this is me anyway. My time is valuable. Okay, and I want to spend, after the system is up and going, I want to spend very little time having to maintain it. Okay, with an aquaponic system, you're gonna be there always checking stuff all the time and making sure everything's cool all the time, and I don't got time for that. So, but with the way that the waste of the fish is feeding the plants, and the plants root system itself and things going with the plants also feeding the fish, along with other things as well. Like I said again, it just depends. But I don't see, if I'm going to do all of that, I'd rather do the aeroponics.
Oh. Okay, gotcha.
And if anything, I'll have a fish tank by itself somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha. And I have seen them growing potatoes using the aeroponics. They use a combination of
Barbara, you muted yourself.
Sorry, I was saying that I saw a video I was watching with the combination. It's aeroponics, but they use combination mist and fog to grow root. It actually was potatoes. So they had the plants on one level, and then they had a reservoir, and they had like a tarp that was wrapped around the space in between. And so they had the misting of the roots, and then they were able to pick the potatoes at the different sizes that they wanted. And they were showing the difference between doing that and then growing it in the dirt and having to cut it to certain sizes that were required.
Now that you mentioned it, I have seen on YouTube a hydroponic based potato growing system. And it was a company that grows these potatoes for fries. Literally, they're a fry company, whatever.
Fries, and the other one I saw was for potato chips.
And so it can be done. It can be done, but you just got to have the space for it, and
Right.
and everything else. But potatoes grow so rapidly and so many that you really don't even need to even do it. Just put them in a big old bucket outside and just let it do what it do.
Yep.
Remember everyone, when you're using hydroponics, it's mostly indoors, and you're using energy to create this stuff. Okay, so now this is the thing about it. I'm glad you mentioned it could lead to this. What if you add a solar panel to it? Right? Because depending upon how much wattage your system utilizes, and I do have a wattage meter hooked to mine, and I meant to look at it before we started today, so I can tell you all how much on a monthly basis, how much electricity I actually use. Okay, but with that, in hooking, if you know the wattage, using a wattage meter, and that will hook the system, and you just keep it hooked up to it. It hooks up to it permanently. You just hook up to it, and it so everything that turns on, turns off, everything else is monitoring it, and you see your monthly wattage, and you get a solar panel that's above that. Well, now you just got a free, kind of like a free growing system. Only thing that's your cost involved with it is seeds and nutrients. That's it. Okay, so that could be very lucrative if you look at it like that. Okay, but so there you go.
Say, Tony, could I ask a question, please?
Go ahead, Teresa.
Yeah. You probably coming in.
Teresa can't hear you. It's breaking up a whole lot.
Oh, I'm coming in late because I had another a meeting. What I'm asking is about, did you cover the tower gardens, those gardens that's in those white containers that tower one over a top of the other?
I didn't. That's a specific product. No, I did not cover tower gardens at all. But they're okay. It's an easy growing system for someone who doesn't want to do. I purposely wanted to do all. You didn't really see, but this is going to be up later on. But I purposely wanted to do this because I wanted to learn this the system itself. I didn't want to buy a complete system that was already created. And so if you all, for example, if you all ask me a question about something you want to create, I can actually answer that question, you know what I'm saying, everything else, versus buying someone's proprietary system. And so the cost of my system overall was less. It's time put into it though, but it's less than buying a tower garden kind of thing. But with those tower gardens, those proprietary systems like that Juice Plus sales, is a brother on here. It's a brother here who's part of Juice Plus here. No, his name is Antoine as well. He's not on it. It doesn't look like he's not on one, but he could have shared his Juice Plus link. But he they have a nice tower garden. It's very proprietary, meaning that you have to go to them for parts and everything else if something go wrong. And it's like a $600 and $900 version. If you're going to look to buy that, you should buy the $900 version because it comes with, I can't think of it right now. I looked at it like some months ago, but it comes with everything you need in a way where the $600 is missing something. Okay. And so it was like, okay, we're going to buy this. I buy the $900 one. The cost of the system I created, other than the time cost of it, adding up everything, it probably came to like $400. Let's say about $400. Okay, so it's 400 versus 900, and because I created the system myself, I know exactly how it works. So if a piece goes bad or whatever, I could just replace it, and it's no big deal. If that proprietary system like from Juice Plus breaks, you're gonna have to call them up because you're not gonna be able to really do anything yourself. Okay, now there are many other companies who do sell some version of a vertical tower garden, something like that. But if you're going to look at that path, you just have to make sure it's really what you want, and so on and so forth. Some of them are nice. The Juice Plus one is nice, you know what I'm saying? But, so. All right.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you, Teresa. Any other questions, comments, anyone?
Yeah, I got another question. So for the version that you said you had two. You had a top shelf and you had a bottom shelf, and the top shelf had white light. Was that all white light, or was it white mixed with blue and red, or just one light, one light color?
The top one, so it was 2 rails at the top. So it's 3 layers, right? Because it mine's I have a 5-tier shelving, right? So it's 3 layers of that plants can grow. The 2 main ones you've seen there pretty much most of the whole time. That's the one that had the 2 rails at the top, 2 rails at the bottom. The one all the way at the top was it was a smaller section that I utilized to grow sprouts. That one had 2 lights up there too. So with the newest version 2 of the system, what I'm doing is that I'm still gonna have that one all the way at the top like that, but I'm pretty much canceling out one of those layers because I'm gonna put again the 2 like reservoirs on one layer, and I'm gonna put all these extra lights. I'm just gonna put all around it, not only at the top but on the sides too. So that is gonna create explosive growth in that because because now that I see how these different systems that I'm creating are working, I see what takes a lot of time to keep going, what does not take a lot of time to keep going, and I want as much food as possible in the shortest period of time without me having to maintain it and mess with it all the time. Every 2 weeks or so, depending upon how big your plants are, it could be 1 week. It just depends. You're going to have to change or add water to it, your system. Okay, water and nutrients and stuff like that. So that's something that you will have to do in a hydroponic system. Okay, so you're going to have to maintain at least in that way. So it's not something you just do and let go and just come back when it's done.
All right, thank you.
Very welcome. Z said, both are great guardians of science and art, most definitely. With Tony. With Tony's system, it is adjustable to situation that it is. With Tower Garden, it is fixed. You are correct. Okay, Tower Garden is a fixed system. It's nice. Again, it's nice. If you're going to spend $900 for it, it's very nice. But it is fixed and it's proprietary. Okay. With the system you create yourself, it may look a bit crude, but you know exactly how it works, and you could adjust it large or small. You can do whatever you want to do. Okay, and I'm here as well. So especially on the Patreon and everything else that we do, you know, we could create these different little projects, and you know, we could be talking about it together and stuff like that. See what you're growing and how big, or how much are you growing, and so on and so forth. So that's just that. Like in the future with this version 2 system, I'm gonna take pictures as well, and I will eventually talk to many of you all. Have another call like this, and you all can see that as well. And this weekend is when I plan on actually creating it. Only thing is, I'm gonna have to because I can't wait to create it because again, it would be no leaks or anything weirdness like that anymore. So I'm like, yes, I don't worry about that. The only thing about it is that some of the roots of the plants, the huge plants that are in the system right now, they're going, you know, they're huge. So it's going to look like I'm going to have to cut at least some of those roots a little bit, and that's not what you want to do. So if you got to cut the roots, you want to make sure that the roots, like you're cutting way down the line. You get what I'm saying? So it's still tons of roots left and everything else because it could cause problems.
Make sure you trim them in a V shape too, so it's pointing down.
Yeah,
Don't cut it across. Don't cut it across.
And thank you for that tip there, Barbara. So, anything else, anyone? Any other questions or comments or anything like that? So again, everyone just remember, if it's about feeding yourself, that's one thing. That's a different strategy you would do versus if it's about making money, as much money as possible. Okay. If it's making much money as possible, you want to research a plant or, you know, a fruit, a vegetable, a fungi, whatever that typically would probably be rare, or it may be that is very cost effective to grow if you can figure it out, especially if it's something that's more difficult to grow, because each one of those little pieces of plants or root or fruit or whatever will net you a lot of money. Okay. And so again, an easy example of that is marijuana. That's a very, very easy example. Okay. Because an ounce of weed is an ounce of weed, a pound of weed is a pound of weed. You know what I'm saying? Depending upon what you're growing, it could be hundreds or thousands of dollars. Okay, so that's a very easy one as far as just to point out. But there are many, 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 many others out there. Okay. If it's about your feeding yourself and your family, then it comes down to how much food, nutrient dense vegetables, because it's going to be the main, it's going to be vegetables for the most part. How many nutrient dense vegetables can I squeeze into this small space? Okay. And then not only that, how can I step it or sidestep it so that I can have food harvesting all the time. Okay, you want to literally take your time and you want to really get a pen and paper. You want to kind of jot it out, and you'll be scribbling. You'll be erasing things. You can jot out more things. You really want to do that. So once you get your system going, it will be really nice. So, all right, and especially in these times, for many of you all, I would seriously consider this. Okay. Just because of what's going on around us and stuff like that. Whether it be with you, whether you're joining in with other people or whatever it may be, you know what I'm saying, to grow lots of food, because it's going to take time for the systems to work, right? It's going to take time for you to get used to how to, if you're doing it yourself, it's going to take time for you to figure it out. It's going to take time for you to get, even if you figured it all out, it's going to take time for the first harvest, right? It's going to take time for that, okay? So you want to really figure that out. It's you could, in many times, if it's raw land versus a starter hydroponic system versus this pure raw land, potentially that hydroponic system will bear fruit quicker than that raw land, because sometimes you have to prepare the land. There's things you have to do to the land to get it ready for growing food. Okay. Yes, if it's fertile land, you can literally take a seed, plant it anywhere, and it's going to grow. But sometimes you do have to do things to it. Okay. So, all right. Any other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments?
Are there certain sources that you get your lights, your grow lights from, Tony?
Well, I showed a bunch of products and things on Amazon, and so this video is going to be up later, and you could actually review it if you choose to. But I showed a bunch of different products and things on Amazon, but you can get them from Amazon. You know, there's many grow shops you can get things from, hydroponic stores and stuff like that, where you can get grow lights and nutrients and tubing and everything else for them. A lot of the tubing and all that stuff could come from Amazon, or you can get it from your local hardware store. The lighting is going to be from like Amazon or from a online hydro place, or from your local store. Amazon will probably be the cheapest, but there are many hydro stores online, which has especially more of the higher end stuff, you know what I'm saying, to 600 watts, 1,000 watt, 2,500 watts, that type of stuff. It's probably going to be online, period, with that, because you're going to have to order it, and it's going to have to be shipped to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Anyone else? We'll do the countdown. Going once.
Is there any kind of way that I can review this Zoom call on the website, or?
It would be on the Patreon, maybe by tomorrow. It'll be up there. And so I might put it on YouTube, but it'll be a little bit later if it's going to be put on YouTube.
So to get the Patreon account, I have to go to the website Patreon and then look for the Meta Center.
Yep, look for the Meta Center. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess that would be it. Again, everyone, it's going to be another session later this year. It's going to be a repeat, but may have some little, typically when I do a repeat, I'd add a little bit of information here, a little information there, but overall it's going to be the same information. And that's going to be potentially in Atlanta. If it is in Atlanta, then we're going to hit up Stone Mountain and maybe somewhere else in the local region that may be of interest. So, and I'm thinking maybe again late September, early October, something like that. So it'll be on the website if that's the case. If that's the case. So so that's just that. So if anything else come up, you all, I'm a phone call away, email away, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And so I look forward to some of you at least growing something. Because I'm very interested in what you may be growing. Like I even grow some lavender. Just so you all know, I even grew lavender flowers. Okay, lavender was very difficult to come up, but it smells up the entire space once it actually is able to get all the way fully grown. Okay, so yep.
How tall do you grow your amaranth plants?
What about amaranth? Oh,
I said, how
tall?
tall do you grow the plant? So you know the whole thing is edible. You don't have to let it go to seed.
Yep. Well, there's only so much space right now. Once I create the new system in version 2, which will be this weekend, it will have more space to grow taller. Okay. Right now it's at about let's see here. Right now it's about a little over a foot, maybe a foot and a half.
Okay.
And of course it's really wide all around, so it's leaves all around it, stuff like that. And so it's growing almost up to because in that particular section where it's growing, the light is only about 2 feet up. So it has about half a foot now to grow before it touches the light. But in the new system, it will have much, much higher to grow.
Yeah, you can eat the entire amaranth plant except for the root. You can cook it like spinach, cut it up.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, so one day when I chop that one down, I cut it down, I'm gonna probably just use it, cook it like a spinach.
Chop it and steam it like spinach with some onions and, all that good stuff. The seeds make very good porridge, and I think that's what you're talking about. But the amaranth, that's the actual seed, but the plant itself is basically callaloo. You know Jamaican callaloo? That's basically what it is. It's a variant on that. Very tasty.
There it is. All right. So I think that's about it. Hopefully this was very interesting to many of you all. I hope it was, and maybe a bit inspirational. And so if anything comes up again, we could have another session. Just depends on what is on your mind and so on and so forth. And so other than that, you all have a good night, and I'll talk to many of you all soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Very welcome.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.
Peace, brother.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.